So you're in your second year now. Is it normal for second years to have hospital placements?
So, biomedical sciences is not a clinical degree. You do everything in labs. So, you go and do experiments in labs, you do blood tests and all that stuff in labs. And you do all your theoretical training similar to the medics, but you don't go and do the clinical teaching. So, you don't go and get taught about patient histories and etc. etc. Um, so you wouldn't find any biomedical sciences students in the wards, as it's not a clinical degree. But if you were in second year medicine, you would be on the wards.
Okay, so this is interesting because I know that currently you are working in wards, right? And that's because of COVID. So tell us how you've become involved in that work.
So back to March when we were at our first peak of the COVID, um, our university sent us an email saying that the hospital is really struggling with staff and they'd like the students to support them. And they opened up roles as healthcare assistants for us to go in and help on these wards, support the staff by helping run the unit, helping the nursing staff do their job. As at that point in time, there was a huge shortage of staff due to COVID sickness.
Okay. I want to go back to when you were told that you have to work on the wards. Um, and that was obviously back in March, and that was our first peak of COVID. So I want to know kind of your experience of starting your shifts on the ward and what kind of things you were doing, what you were seeing.
I think you mentioned that I had to start working with the wards. It was more of a volunteering opportunity. They labeled it as first. So this job was advertised as a voluntary experience, saying we need help on the wards. And then only when I got hired for that position and I went in for my training, they told us it's going to be a paid position. During our teaching for that job, we were taught our basic observation skills, how to take care of patients, how to uh, manually handle patients, etc., etc. But we were told that most of our learning is going to happen on the job, as I'm sure it is for many other jobs. It was quite a daunting experience. First of all, going into the hospital, we were all deployed into COVID ICUs at the time. And at that point in time in this hospital, there were many COVID ICUs, most of them makeshift. I remember going in on my first night shift with one of my friends who also lived in my hall's accommodation last year, not knowing what was going to happen. So we went to the briefing where we got distributed between all of these intensive care wards and we were split up. I was the only person from our little school group going to that intensive care unit, and I was deployed to the cardiac theatres section of it. And it was a very scary experience. We've heard all these bad things about COVID and how it's killing people. And here I am walking through a door that's had plastic shielded around it saying no entry, communicable infections, stop here, beware, and all that stuff. I was told to don on my PPE. That was the first time I was ever putting on PPE properly, apart from the time I was taught it in the training sessions. And the corridor had a huge line in the middle dividing the COVID area before you enter the rooms and the clean area. So I stood on the clean area, putting on my PPE, shaking because I didn't know what I was doing essentially. And out came a nurse and helped me put on my PPE. She's like, "Yeah, you look great. Can't tell it was your first day or anything like that." And in I was. I opened the door to the surgery theatre, and that was the first ever experience I've had with COVID, with intubated patients, with comatized patients, and any sort of clinical work, so to say. And I said, "Hi, my name is Jakub. It's my first day here." And straight away, without anyone saying anything, the nurse goes up to me and she says, "You need to go and do a deep suction on that person's lungs because they're choking on the secretions." I just stared at her right in her face saying, "Hi, again, my name is Jakub. I'm a new HCA here. I don't mind helping, but please can you show me how to do it?" So a lot of the work was very learn it, look at it, be supervised by a nurse doing it, and then help out as much as you can. As in intensive care, you need to have ideally one intensive care nurse to a patient. But at that point in time, with so many units opened and the hospital only having a set amount of intensive care nurses, they had to distribute them as as much as possible. And it was already at the point of having one intensive care nurse to 4 or 5 patients, and having a registered nurse helping out, or a HCA like myself helping out in those bays to support the nurse that isn't able to do all her work by herself, as she has to split her workload between 4 patients. But after that night shift, I remember coming out with sores all over my face, sticking to my PPE, saying, gosh, like I've learned so much in my night shift. And that night I lost my first patient. That was the first time I experienced death, to be honest. I've experienced death in the family before, but never to that extreme of seeing somebody die right in front of me. And I just couldn't comprehend it. I just went home and slept, just because I knew I've got another few night shifts afterwards, so you don't really get to recover, so you just sleep throughout your entire day.
It sounds like a major baptism of fire. Because,
For sure.
I mean, what experience before your kind of first shift, did you have any kind of first aid experience or any other medical experience, like hands-on rather than just theory? Did you have any of that before?
So I did my first aid course a few years prior to that, and I don't think you can count work experience as medical experience. I mean, I sat in a few open heart surgeries, but I wasn't doing anything apart from spectating. So this was a huge learning spike. It was such a learning curve. I came from only learning about ECGs in one lecture at university to staring at them all day long. So like I said, all the medical experience came from learning it on the job. I came in empty-handed and took the best of what I could from there.
Amazing. I feel like there's so many questions from this, in the sense that I mean, to kind of boil it down, you kind of went in as a member of the general public. Like, do you see what I mean? I mean that with respect. After the first peak, we worked together at Thorpe Park, right? We were in the medical team and we were dealing with first aid things. And I think that was a great experience, and we can speak about that more. But I just, oh my gosh, I'm kind of lost for words, because I think I think a lot of people understand that we need more staff on the wards, but I don't know how many people know about what type of students there are in the wards and what experience they've had in the past. And I don't think it's a scary thing. Like I think something to stress is that even though you kind of did come in as a member of the public, but you're on like a medical theory course, like I fully respect that. But you are kind of supported and you were kind of shown what to do, right?
Kind of supported and kind of shown, but I guess the NHS was at its breaking point, and any help they could get was the help they could get. They had to make do with what they've got. If I didn't come and help that nurse that night, who knows how many more patients could have died in that room, because she couldn't give them the care that they needed.